I met Leonard 26 years ago.
What was he like back then?
Pretty much like this. He hasn't aged much. I've aged horribly, and he looks exactly the same.
That is completely untrue.
What's the start of this project? What's the first inkling that you guys are going to start working together again?
Me and Tim had been talking. It had been 10 years since we worked together. 10
The
years, almost
founders
exactly.
asked if I could make an IP, and I said, not all of an IP, because I know what I'm not good at, and the things I'm not good at are the things Leonard is great at. Basically, everything narrative.
Why do you think Obsidian came to you and said, hey, we really want you to make a new IP?
We've done it before. Well, it's my 6th new one, and it's your
Third
new one.
Well, Fergus was, at the end of Fallout, he was the department head. But Chris Jones actually worked with us on Fallout. He was a programmer on the original Fallout with us, and he worked with us at Troika. I guess he enjoyed working with us. So
The beginning of this game kind of reminded me of Fallout, though, because I wasn't allowed to bring anybody onto the team. So what I'd do is I'd order pizza and sit in a conference room and say, whoever wants to come by, let's work on a game. It was after hours. And this game started with Chris and I would drive to a restaurant and meet Leonard and just talk about ideas.
And what were those first ideas?
It was just, how would we do a space RPG?
I remember getting some reference material together in terms of how I wanted the world to look. Tim had some ideas that I would immediately say we had to get rid of.
I have notebooks of ideas that never made it in other games, and flaws actually were in that notebook.
So you came to Obsidian with the idea of helping out with this new IP then?
Yeah, I was hired to work with Tim to create this new IP from scratch.
Just us in a room with a whiteboard. I've said before that everyone's goal is to, here's a bag of money, go make a game. And that's happened a few times now.
So I don't remember who I was talking to. A couple years back, I think I was still at Blizzard. And we were talking about something, and I'm like, well, no one gets to make the game they want to make. Except I did. Oh, wait, twice.
Twice.
And now it's 3 times. We're very fortunate. We were in the right place at the right time and just got really lucky.
How much did you guys talk about Fallout during the planning stages? Or is that just part of your DNA, so it naturally flows
It's really
out?
part of the DNA, because I know one of the comments people have made a lot is, well, this game's humor reminds me of Fallout. And some people are saying it's a little too much like Fallout. And I'm like, that's my humor. I can't change it.
Unlike other people who might set out to make a Fallout style game, we had the exact opposite problem. We had to keep saying, oh, is this too much like Fallout? Because, original Fallout, we were in a corner with our bag of money, our very small bag of money. And
a pouch of money.
It was, and we just were following what we thought would be cool. So it was basically, it was our personalities, it was our going with our guts. So now this time around, doing that same thing, sometimes we get actually a little too close. We go, oh, we got to steer it away from there. As opposed to other people would be like, how are we going to make this feel like Fallout? We're like, how are we going to make this not feel like Fallout?
We have a lot of Fallout New Vegas people on this team.
And that too, yeah.
So they were suggesting things like, hey, well, in New Vegas we did this. I'm like, okay, that's a little too, on the nose. We had some fun design sessions. We had one where we were sitting around trying to think of what would be good flaws in the game, and that was fun. The one where we were talking about what science weapons we were going to put in and what we weren't was fun.
One of my favorite things that we were doing was when we were meeting early on with our writers and just brainstorming story ideas and quest ideas. Just the pure creative stuff is always fun. It's great sitting in that meeting and brainstorming it, and then you have to go do it, make sure it works. Then it gets a little bit more tough.
Was it tough to nail down the scope of this project? Did you know early on this is what we're trying to bite off? Or was it not until the publisher came in that you got a better idea of that?
We knew what we wanted the scope to be. We knew we wanted it to be smaller, but as is usually the case, even when we think we're building something smaller, it's bigger than, we've bit off more than we could chew. So we've had to kind of scale back twice now. The other issue there is with all the improvements in graphical quality comes in an increase in time that it takes to create the content.
Because of that, we relied a lot more on concept art.
I think some of it was things we could have probably anticipated, and some of it was just stuff that we just were not as familiar with. The time constraints and the budget constraints have been a little challenging. We are always wanting to put more into our games, more reactivity, more content, and we just have to really be cognizant of choices we're making and making sure that we're keeping the size of it small enough that we can, polish it as much as we want and really deliver the experience that we want players to have.
It's a roller coaster. I think every time I start this, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Why don't I just keep doing this? And then, you get into the details and you go through a long period where it's pretty much just this, all the stuff has to get done. You get to the end where you have to cut things and you have to change things. And it's just, it gets stressful, and there's a lot that has to be done, and I go, why do I do this? But then you do something like when we got that trailer done for the Game Awards, you're like, this is awesome, this is really fun. Plus, suddenly a whole bunch of people know what we're making, and then you just feed off that kind of excitement.
We're very excited to reveal our brand new game and our brand new universe, The Outer Worlds. We hope you enjoy it.
It's funny to hear two industry veterans be like, this is hard.
It is. It is a hard, I think it was Dustin Browder from Blizzard had the famous quote of, making games is hard. It's fun, it's really rewarding, but it is very, very difficult. It's like you're putting together a jigsaw puzzle and you can't see the picture, and you're creating the pieces as you go. Even this project has gone great. I mean, I've been on projects that have not really gone great. This project has gone great. And even on the best project and the smoothest project, there's just a lot of stuff to take care of and make sure it gets done correctly.
And then I think after it ships, you forget a lot of that stressful bad stuff. You're like, let's do it again.
How does the project feel for you guys? From the outside, it feels like such a special little strange anomaly in the game industry. I'm curious from your vantage point, how does the project feel?
I
What
think
does
that
it
pretty
mean
much
for you?
describes me and Tim. We're strange
Everybody said
anomalies
that
in
about
the game
every
industry.
game we've made. Fallout was a little strange anomaly. But yeah, it always feels like it's a little corner of weirdness in the company. It's never exactly the game we thought we were gonna make, but when it's over, you're like, that's exactly the game we should have made.